everybody, and what a time it is. The Balanced Dataslate has landed, but not just that. The MFM, plus the rules commentary, plus the core rules, plus the champion pack. I have never seen so much change in 40k happen all at once. So, let's get to it. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to design this video just to be really short and simple and give you the bullet points that affects us as Tau players. And some of the good, some of the bad, some of the ugly, and I'm going to basically make it so that it's really simple and easy for you to digest. I'll be doing lots of other videos and more material within my Discord, so please, if you don't already join the Puretide Program, or if you haven't already joined the Puretide Program, click on the link in the description, join it, because now is the time. Now, I've been doing a lot of stuff early this afternoon when it landed with my subscribers, so you can sign up to Pathfinder, which is the lowest tier, Shaspray, Chassel, and honestly, we've been going through loads of changes together. We've had a 3.5 hour call going through the stuff, and tonight as well, we're going to go into more detail and have a casual chat around how it affects lists, and there is some big shake-up. So if you're interested, you want to up your game, and you want to join the best Tau Discord in the world, now is the time to do it. Now, there will be a promo code left for you for basically the 10% off when you sign up for either of these packages, so make sure you make use out of that. Put the promo code in when you check out, and yeah, for the greater good. So let's get started. Okay, so the key things from the Balanced Dataslate, as you can see here, we're going to skip this section for now, and we're going to go straight to our Tau Empire. Now, sadly, one of the bad is that there are no rules changes for us, so none whatsoever. You know, so at a glance you're thinking, well, that just sucks. We've got nothing. But actually, there's a lot of subtle changes within the other documents that are going to help us massively in terms of how we use our units and obviously how we build our lists. So don't get too disheartened the fact that we haven't had any rules changes. I would have liked to see a few, but to be honest with you, I think we've got a lot of other changes elsewhere that are going to help us, plus lots of other changes to other armies. So, okay, let's have a look at the Tau points. 1 minute, I'm going to flip between loads of different things, so apologies, got all the documents open. Here we go. Okay, cool. So, key things are, the changes, strike teams have gotten from 80 points to 75, so we've had a 5-point deduction in our strike teams. Broadsides have now been reversed slightly, as you can see here. One model has now gone down to 90, a 2-model unit is 180, and when you take 3, it's 300. So in the past, we've been taking kind of like 2-man units of broadsides because they just have enough punch to hit the anti-tank and then can double up to kill elites. So that is back on the menu, which is a good sign. All crisis suits, all of them, all 3 different data sheets, Fire Knife, Star Scythe, Sunforge, have gone down by 20 points. That is a huge reduction. So Star Scythe were 130, they're now 110. Fire Knife were 150, now they're 130. Sunforge were 170, now they are 150. So a lot of people that got into Tau is because they saw the battle suits and went, brilliant, I just want all the suits. That is now not just a dream, it's a possibility. Commanders, on top of the crisis suits going down, commanders have gone down. So the Cold Star used to be 110, it's now gone down to 95. The Enforcer, 90 points, has gone down to 80. So on that alone, the Enforcer has kind of gone to the same points as the XV8 Commander that we used to have in Index, and he's an absolute beast. 2+ save, can potentially have 8 wounds, and you've got an 80-point unit that can be used for deep striking, getting into those nook and crannies, hitting them with whatever loadout you want, whether it's fusions, whether it's just missile pods, plasmas, burst cannons, you name it, you've got it. So we've got a really, really powerful single model that can just drop in and do very good damage for his points. So, the other thing as well is that when you look at the points perspective and a few other things, hammerheads have gone up from 130 to 145. Now, you might be thinking, well, why? The hammerheads aren't that good, but actually in some of the detachments, hammerheads are absolutely brutal. Take Montcar, for example. The Ion hammerheads are now seeing more play than ever. You know, being able to have Blast, D6 plus 3, Strength 8 when you overcharge, AP 2, flat 3 damage, and then increase the AP, whether that be through the Focus Fire stratagem in Montcar or the Point Blank ambush with Kyle with 1 a unit and with the +1 to wound with the trap objective. They actually started to be really efficient and staples of every list. But actually, don't just look at, oh, the hammerheads have gone up. All other tanks, like the Vindicators, the Reaper, the Predator Annihilator, all those similar sort of tank profiles have gone up at similar points level. So all those tanks have gone up, and because there's a couple of unique changes to tank shock and also pivoting in how you move vehicles. So I think they've just put up the points of the vehicles to represent these subtle but very impactful changes to the game. Now, one of the other, unfortunately, bad thing, can we just take a moment for our chicken brothers, the Kroot detachment has been slammed. This hurts massively. So let's talk about a few of those changes. So the Kroot detachment got hit really hard because two of the stratagems that were very important to how the Kroot detachment worked was number one, being able to loan up any Kroot unit, and that was a 12-inch loan up. The core changes to the rules is if you are affecting a unit that doesn't have loan up already, it goes from loan up 12 to loan up 18. So it's not as powerful. It can still be used tactfully, but that is a big change anyway. One of the tactics that I used to do with Rampages, for example, was rapid ingress them 12.1 away from something and then loan up them for a CP. Now I'd have to be 18.1 away and I'm only movement 7, so then that actually makes the charge near enough impossible. So like a 10-inch or 11-inch charge, so you've got to be a bit more tactical when you're trying to use that for that particular combo. The other thing that has been nerfed, not just for Tau, but for any army that can regenerate a unit through a stratagem or an ability, you can only do it once per game. So Join the Hunt, it's once per game. And that kills the combo of constantly bringing back battle line units and also the War Shaper that had the free ability to do a stratagem on himself. He goes away as well. You can only use it once per game. That is a huge hit to this detachment. So that is sad times. That is probably one of the bad / the ugly things. The other thing as well that really needs clearing up, and it's a bit annoying, is that one of the enhancements in the retaliation card of the Puretide engram chip is completely useless because it doesn't name any stratagems and therefore you can't do it again. And with the changes to how free stratagems work and ones that reduce, it's just a mess. The Puretide engram chip just flat out doesn't work and needs FAQing. We were talking about this in our Discord, and we think that if you were able to pick one stratagem and make that the named one, then that would be useful. Then you could do, well, I want to do the Fire and Fade stratagem, or I want to do the 3-inch Deep Strike stratagem that would make it 2 CP go down to 1 CP, or the Fire and Fade down to 0. So I think that one is the one that needs FAQing immediately. So as Tau players, please, 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 send in this to GW, because the whole point of this live FAQ rules changes is the point when they get feedback from customers, they will be reading it and they will be altering it. And this is the one thing that we need fixing, because you wouldn't pay 25 points for something that doesn't do anything. So why is it even there? So that is something that needs to be looked at immediately. I'm going to email in, and I'm actually going to message GW. I'm going to message Josh and see and give it him directly as well. So that needs changing. Let's get into the other changes that I think are going to be huge. So let's have a look at these core rule changes, because that will actually tie in nicely to what I've just said about the Puretide engram chip. Modifying a stratagem CP cost. Rules that enable you to target a unit from your army with a stratagem for 0 CP, but do not specify the name of the stratagem. For example, the Captain's Rights of Battle ability. Instead, reduce the CP cost of that stratagem by 1. If a model has a rule that would, once per battle, increase the CP cost of the opponent's stratagem, like the Calidus' Assassin's Reign of Confusion ability, it's replaced with this rule. Each time your opponent targets a unit from their army with a stratagem, if that unit is within 12 of this model, increase the CP cost of that use by 1. So that's good. So they put a range limitation, so no longer can a Calidus be at the edge of the board and go, yeah, that CP now costs you an extra 1. So I like that change. That's going to be huge for us. Stratagems that can be used more than once per phase/turn. Parts of a rule that allow a player to use a stratagem even if they have already targeted another unit with that stratagem in the same phase can only be used if the name of the stratagem is specified in that rule. If a stratagem is limited to once per player in the same phase, I'll be using the name of the stratagem is specified in that rule. Similarly, if a stratagem is limited to one use per player turn, aka Fire Overwatch, per battle round or per battle, such parts of that rule can only be used if the name of the stratagem is specified in that rule. So I think the Puretide Engram chip needs to give you an option of putting one of the stratagems as a named one for this to work, otherwise it's pointless. And then obviously the stratagems that prevent units from being targeted, that's what I said originally about the lone op, so easy example rather than reading it out. Anything that can be given lone op 12 becomes lone op 18, so Wraiths, Kroot, the CSM had already been changed to that anyway, so it's just moving things in line with stuff that they've already done. And then stratagems that add new units to your army. That's what I discussed with the Kroot one, so you can only use the stratagem once per battle. So for us, Join the Hunt in Kroot can only be used, but things like Imperial Guard, being able to completely bring back Kassakrim, or Standard Guardsmen, or Katachans, and then Nids being able to do it, it can only be used once. So no longer can they just bank on regenerating loads of battle line units to help with secret missions and stuff. So that is a really good overall change to the game. And then we look at a lot of other stuff. To be honest with you, to simplify it, I can do something separate to this, but AdMech have got new rules and changes to their imperatives, and their ranged weapons and their combat weapons have had big changes. Eldari, not much has changed. The big changes, I suppose, Guard being able to having to choose the lethal hits against vehicles, and other things. So if your army is Astrometom, officer models with this ability can use orders. To be honest, we don't even have to talk about the Guard. The key thing that's changed for Guard is that Indirect has been completely nerfed as well. So rather than going through all of this, I think the key things for us are that lots of armies have had big changes. So for us, the Walk Talons was an issue. They've basically added if that unit has destroyed one or more enemy units, so it can't just tag along for the ride, something else kills it and they go up in the skies. That's a huge buff for us. The Guard, the Indirect Guard is basically brutal. They unmodified rolls of a 1 to 3 miss, so they hit on 4s, but if they're hitting stealth, yes, they could probably get pluses to hit, so they're going to be hitting on 4s at best, potentially with reroll 1s. So Indirect has been heavily nerfed, which is a good thing for the game, but the way that they've nerfed the Indirect doesn't really nerf us, because the best that we would hit on would be 4s with our Riptides, because we ignore modifiers and we can still reroll 1s, whereas our SMS was hitting on 5s, but it'll still continue to hit on 5s. So the oppressive Indirect in the game has drastically been hit. Sisters, Death Guard, Imperial Guard, Chaos Knights with their small indirect fire on the top of the gun, on top of the Knights that hit on 2s. So that's all been nerfed. So I like that change. Finally, Indirect is not as oppressive as it used to be, and we were never breaking that anyway, so we had the most balanced Indirect, if you will. So for us, doesn't change. For everyone else, it's got considerably worse. So if we look at a couple of other cool rules changes, so what I put down here is number one, the good changes for Tau is that things that target stuff like that ignore lone op doesn't exist anymore. So, for example, in the past, T-Suns would be like, oh, Doombolt, 18-inch range or 36 because of the Mortalith Beast, could just target Shadow Sun or Ghost Keel and just start doing damage to it. They can no longer do that, okay? Unless they're within the respective range of 12 or 18 if you've got a stratagem. So that helps us with Shadow Sun and our Ghost Keels massively. And the other thing is broadsides finally have a rule that works. The advanced armor, which gives you a 4+ feel no pain against mortal wounds, devastating wounds are now mortals, so that the broadsides will get the 4+ feel no pain. So broadsides have come out of this balanced data slate and changes very well. We used to take units of 2, we can now take units of 2 for the same price, and then against any mortals you're getting 4+ feel no pain. Oh, sorry, devastating wounds because they're now mortals, which is great change and I love it. So finally we have a rule that's not just pointless. The other thing as well is that let's have a look. Where was it? Yeah, perfect. Pivoting with vehicles was a nightmare because especially our vehicles that had weird shapes, you know, you had to turn, pivot, calculate the movement, turn, pivot, calculate the movement, and by the time you finished all your pivoting, you'd run out a lot of space. Oh, sorry, you'd run out a lot of movement, and then you're moving like 2 or 3 inches forward. So the changes here are nice. So each time you pivot a model, rotate it any amount around its central axis, perpendicular to the battlefield through the center of its base, or through the center of the model if it doesn't have a base. The first time you do this during each model's move, subtract that model's pivoting value, see below, from the remaining distance it can move during that move. If there is not enough distance left to do this, it cannot pivot. Note that the distance it can move is only reduced once for that move, regardless of how many additional time it pivots. Huge. So the pivoting value. Models have a pivot value of 0 unless stated. So let's talk about that part. Broadsides, okay? Because the second part, sorry, monster and vehicle models, excluding models on round bases, and aircraft models have a pivot value of 2, unless stated otherwise. So broadsides have a rail rifle. So what you can do is you can actually, it still counts as a move because you are pivoting, but broadsides could turn their guns from here to there for 0. So from a line of sight perspective, you only move 5, but usually you've got about 1.5 inches or 2 inches overhang with the rail because it's quite a long gun. So you can actually pivot the broadsides and it doesn't cost you movement. And on something that's a movement value of 5, you know, that's huge. And you could pivot for things like line of sight. So I think that's a massive change. But then the other things like monsters and vehicles that have bases, so for those of you who are using devilfish and hammerheads on just without bases, you are going to have to put them on bases. I've always had my devilfishes and hammerheads on bases, so when you pivot these models now, it just costs you 2 inches. So you pivot once, and then you've got 10 inches of movement, but you don't have to pivot and again, well, you can pivot again, but it's not going to cost you any extra movement. So that means vehicles can actually get around the board a lot easier now. That is such a good, healthy change for the game. I was sick and tired of having to calculate everything, and it slows down the game, it eats away at your clock time, and it's just an absolute nightmare. But not just for you, but also for your opponent, because they have to come over and check what you're doing and make sure it's accurate, because everything has to be precise when you're trying to get line of sight on an important unit, or potentially a charge for Tank Shark, and that for me, really good. I love that change. Okay, so the other things that have changed is the redeployments. So this is another reason why redeployment on the Kroot detachment has been nerfed as well, because redeployments have now essentially been shoved before knowing who's going first. So they've just streamlined it and gone, well, some abilities were done before the first turn roll, but after deployment, and some were done after. So now what they've done is they've just made everything happen before determining the first turn. And then you basically starting with the attacker, and then you alternate resolving any of these rules. So the player can set up that unit using that ability. Players alternate resolving any such rules, starting with the attacker. Okay, so nice and simple. Everybody can redeploy, but everybody who has this redeployment can do it, but before knowing who's going first. So it is a bit of a nerf to our trail shaper. Well, it is a nerf, not a bit of a nerf. It's a straight up nerf. So the other thing as well is what was the other thing I was going to talk about? Command points. The command points core rule changes have been changed so that you can actually fast roll now. So they just put that in there. So no more having to slow roll. They just said, even if you're fast rolling, you re-roll something. The other thing that I've where was it? A big thing here is firing deck. So Marines used to abuse this with eliminators. So eliminators used to basically shoot and then do their fire and fade after shooting, which is a normal move, embark into a transport, and then because the vehicle had firing deck, it could shoot again with the eliminators. Sorry. Now they've specified that you can't, because it says whose units have not already shot. Yeah, so this is huge. And I think that's a good change for the game. It cuts out a lot of that feel bad moments. The other thing, let's talk about mortal wounds. Oh god, that's quite long. What was it? Not mortal wounds. I want to talk about devastating wounds. While I find that one, let's go to indirect fire. So indirect fire. Essentially here, it says, if no models in a target unit are visible to the attacking unit when you select that target, then each time a model in that attacking unit makes an attack against that target using an indirect fire weapon, subtract 1 from the attacker's hit roll. An unmodified hit roll of a 1 to 3 always fails, and the target has the benefit of cover against that attack. So, in short, no more basilisks and manticores hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. Flat up, 50-50 if they've got abilities to negate the minus to hit, or they have heavy or +1 to hit. It's just 1 to 3s will always fail. Thank God. So, yeah, so if mortal wounds are being inflicted as a result of the hazardous ability or by an attack with the devastating wounds ability, that scored a crit hit each time those mortal wounds are allocated to a model. If that model is destroyed as a result of those mortal wounds, the remaining mortal wounds from the attack are lost, just as with a normal attack. So basically, they're referring to devastating wounds, but then they're putting mortal wounds in there. So hence why our broadsides will get a 4-up feel no pain. Hazardous, so nice and easy. They've just clarified it. If possible, when you roll a 1 when the test is failed, if possible, select one model in that unit that has lost 1 or more wounds and is equipped with 1 or more hazardous weapons. Otherwise, if possible, select one model in the unit, excluding character models, equipped with 1 or more hazardous weapons. Otherwise, select one character model in the unit equipped with 1 or more hazardous weapons. So basically, step 1, step 2, step 3. So you can't allocate in weird ways, so they just clarified that. Extra attacks, well, they just stopped that now, as per the thing that I did with Rampages. That was immediately FAQ'd by WTC, and now GW have put that in to stop that bullshit. Thank God for that. Yeah, so the devastating wounds here. Weapons with devastating wounds in their profile known as devastating wounds weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, if that attack scores a critical wound, no saving throw of any kind can be made against that attack, including invulnerable saves. Such attacks are only allocated to models after all attacks made by the attacking units have been allocated and resolved. Doesn't remain changed. After that attack is allocated, and after any modifiers are applied, it inflicts a number of mortal wounds on the target equal to the damage characteristic of that attack instead of afflicting damage normally. So that's the thing, it converts it to mortal wounds, which then procs our 4+ feel no pain. So again, I love that. It was really annoying having a rule that doesn't actually come into play after those changes prior to this. So command reroll I've already spoke about. You basically can fast roll. The other change is the grenade stratagem as well. So excluding units that advanced, fell back, or have shot this turn. So before you could fall back with a breacher, for example, and still grenade. But now, if you advance or have fallen back, you cannot use this stratagem, which is really, really good. The other thing that's changed, and this is probably why tanks have gone up in points, the tank shock ability has changed now from strength to toughness, and there are no more additionals to having a higher, now higher toughness, or in the past, higher strength. So effectively, select one enemy unit within engagement range of your unit, and select one vehicle model in your unit that is within engagement range of that enemy unit. Roll a number of d6 equal to the toughness characteristic of the selected vehicle model. For each 5+, the enemy suffers 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6. So before we were doing it, so the nerfs are, unfortunately, Farsight's tank shock is no longer a thing. Well, it can be a thing, but it's not going to be as powerful as it was before. But the plus to this is that your toughness of your vehicles, such as Hammerheads at T10, or Devilfish at T9, Riptides at T9, or Ghost Kills at T8, actually have more of a chance of getting the maximum mortal wounds. So, for example, a Hammerhead at T10, you roll 10 dice, you should be getting between 3 and 4 mortal wounds. Whereas Farsight at Toughness 5 will only get 2 mortal wounds. So, it's a different way of tank shocking now. It's determined on the toughness rather than the strength. And because vehicles had low strength, it wasn't really that impactful, unless they had some sort of weapon that was like a power fist or a giant sword. So I like that change. So those are the things that I've written down. Oh, yeah, the other one. Let me try and find it so I can actually read it out. It's the big change to models that can't fit on the board. Let me have a look. I want to find it so I can read it out exactly, but I have written it down in my booklet here. While I'm finding that, the other big change is out of phase rules. Some rules allow a model or unit to move, shoot, charge, or fight outside of the normal turn sequences. For example, if the Fire Overwatch stratagem enables a unit to shoot in your opponent's turn, as if it were your shooting phase, when using out of phase rules to perform an action as if it were one of your phases, you cannot use any other rules that are normally triggered in that phase. So it gives the example of a whirlwind. In your opponent's movement phase, you can fire Overwatch Stratagem to enable a whirlwind from your army to shoot as if it were your shooting phase. The whirlwind has the pinning bombardment ability, which is used in your shooting phase after this model is shot. Because fire Overwatch is an out of phase rule, it only allows the whirlwind to perform the specified action. In that case, shooting as if it was shooting phase, and does not trigger any other rules that would normally be used in your shooting phase. This means the pinning bombardment ability has no effect while resolving these attacks. So it would be the same as, let me just think of another one. The Castigator from Sisters that allows them to make you take a battle shock test when you are hit, but that wouldn't apply here for out of phase rules. So they've clarified out of phase rules, and it stops any other abilities. Where was it? Let me just see if it was in. I know it was in that document somewhere. Give me a minute, guys. so much stuff. I might just have to wing it and just read out what I've written down. Sorry guys, I just can't find the specific thing that's that I want to talk about. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to get at here is I'm just going to read it out. So, tiger sharks, in the past, because of the large size model, you couldn't have any part of it kind of overhanging and the base wouldn't fit. Now that they've actually clarified that you can come in on the board and overhang on the board, just not draw line of sight from overhanging parts. So in the past, you'd bring in a tiger shark, it couldn't do anything but just be shoved in the corner, or you'd have to rapid ingress it and then move and start shooting. But now you can, and you can have models overhanging the board, but that means that you can't draw line of sight from any part that is overhanging. So if you like your tiger sharks, cool, start to bring them, because they can come in and still shoot and stuff and just have part of the model overhanging. So if you think about everything that I've discussed, okay, there's a couple of other things that I just want to kind of cover off before I close it down, because it's been like half an hour now and I wanted to keep this short. There are lots of changes to other armies that are significantly going to make our life a lot easier. You know, the what do you call it? T-Sums have now been hurt bad. Their turn off your armor saves, for example, has completely gone away. It's now improved the armor penetration by 2. Indirect's been nerfed, which some indirect lists were just really difficult for us to deal with if you didn't tech for like loads of lone ops. We've got things like Warp Talons, that ability's gone away. Sisters have gone up a lot in points, even though they've got some insane rules. The points have been put into line. AdMaker got some new rules changes, but they've put the points up to reflect these rule changes. So those are just some of the key things. So honestly, I'm so impressed with this package that I'm still going through everything now to try and kind of really digest all the changes. But I'm going to drop a little bit of a hint here. The one thing I love is that the Battlesuits is the thing here. Now, I'm not saying I might have already made a list, but for you Battlesuit lovers, you definitely can't fit 27 Crisis Suits and 7 Commanders and 3 Stealth Suits and the Starflare Ignition System upgrade for bang on 2,000 points. Now, that would be too crazy. So some retaliation cadre lists are going to come out of the woodworks, and honestly it's probably the biggest buff that we've had, that we can actually take loads of suits. Strike teams are going to be good, battle line units, you know, if you want to go into like the whole Star Wars Order 626 and have loads of fire warriors on the board, happy days, brilliant. So honestly, big shake up for the game. Really impressed. List building is going to get so intense and so intricate. I just can't wait to get started. Now, I'm going to be doing a couple of videos. One of them, I'm going to be doing a video. I was going to do it before the Balanced Dataslate, but I think waiting was the right thing. Recently, I have been to, what was it? In total, 4 super majors and remained undefeated. And I've taken Kroot Detachment, I've taken Kion, and my next kind of project was always going to be the Retaliation Cadre, and now I'm obviously going to be practicing with that as well because it's the lowest win rate out of the rest of them. So I'm going to be doing some interesting things with the good old suits. It's now time to bring Farsight into play, and we all love Daddy Farsight. He's a great model, and he's got some fantastic rules. And I genuinely think Tower in a phenomenal spot because we still have lots of trading pieces. We still have the resources to play the mission. We have really good battle line units. We have fantastic rules. And a couple of things that I did forget to mention, which I'm just going to slot in now, is that GW have actually set a precedence for a very good tournament companion pack. And what I mean by that is they've immediately FAQ'd a few things. One of them being that the recover assets was going to become the new teleport homers because you just have to do an action in your DZ and an action in no man's land and you get 3 points. So if you times that by 5, that's 15, which would have just naturally replaced homers. They wanted just to get away from giving you a fixed one that you could just go 15, thank you for playing, and then take one aggressive one. So the fact that they've removed that from being a fixed option, really good, means they're on the ball with all the detail. They've added character models in the description of Assassinate, and Cull the Horde for those beardy players that were like, well, I'll just pay for 20 and take 19. Nah, it says here, if you paid for basically 20 models, it counts. So, nice try, not going to happen. So again, look, they're on the ball. This has now set precedents for future balanced data slates and FAQs and rule commentary just to be absolutely on point. So, round of applause, GW, and well done, Josh. I know you've obviously heavily influenced that. And well done to all the other reps out there that represent, WTC, UKTC. You're all in bed with each other. You've all worked together to make this a thing. And honestly, I think you are the unsung heroes and you do not get enough credit for the work that you do. So from me, absolutely top work. I might just be a bold ginger guy who's talks about Tau too much, but I really kind of respect people that are making positive changes for the overall game. The reason we love this game is because it's interactive, it engages a community, brings them together, and we get to play with toy soldiers. And some of us have the honour and lucky position of being able to do it for a living. So I love the fact that this game is forever evolving and changing. So thank you, and keep up the great work. The other thing that I'd like to say is this is what I was waiting for. This breakdown of what mission rules are going to be used with what primary missions and the deployment. This is good because they've got they've got a good selection of mission rules rather than just, in the past it was chilling rain, chilling rain, chilling rain, chilling rain, insert another one, chilling rain, chilling rain. We all thought it would just be fog of war, fog of war, fog of war, new one, fog of war, fog of war, fog of war. It's not. You've got one fog of war in there. The rest is actually trying out the new mission rules. Brilliant. It adds flavour, it adds a diverse, engaging, exciting game with lots of possibilities. So, combined with secret missions, that's the only thing that's the big question mark, and I'm going to do a separate thing on that, but I love all these changes. So again, guys, this is super exciting, and I cannot wait to get started. So, without further ado, thank you for obviously taking part and watching this and sticking with me. I'll be doing videos, content, discussions, all in my Discord. So please, 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 if you want to come and support and be involved, then I'm not kidding, guys. Look at the reviews. People absolutely love what I've created. It's a highly engaging community that's very positive, embraces change, and what I love to see is that not just engaging with you as the community live, because all of my calls that I do within the subscription tier are live and also recorded. So if you are around the world and you can't join live, you can watch it as a recorded video. But if you can join live, then you get to interact with me directly and ask me questions and discuss your lists, ask for advice, and then we can do in different tiers. You've got Quiz the Commander to talk about the intricacies of maybe you want to go through your deployment, maybe you've got some rules questions, maybe you've got some questions to handle certain scenarios that come up in tournaments, whether it be sportsmanship, fair play, managing time, managing behaviours, managing expectations, all that kind of stuff. I live and breathe being interactive with an audience. That for me is what makes this dream work. The other thing that we do is that we also do demonstrations on TTS, where we actually pull up a scenario, play a game, coach, develop, build on what we're learning, and all of this comes in different packages. It's always a description. Pathfinder basic tier, Shasbury mid tier, and Chassel is for the real competitive players that want to push their performance even further. But each tier you will get something out of it. So, links below in the description. And obviously remember, please like, subscribe, do all the thing, comment on my YouTube algorithm, that would be much appreciated. But come and join the Puretide Program, the best place to be for you greater good lovers. Anyway, thank you very much, enjoy the rest of your day and your evening, and get busy playing. And remember, 27 crisis suits and 7 commanders and 3 stealth suits, and Starflare ignition system, 2,000 points. Shh, don't tell anyone. Anyway, see you later guys, thank you very much.